This is your Unit 1 Lesson 8 video on evaluating expressions. I already pre-filled in the first page of your notes, so I'm going to be going faster than what you can probably write. So if you need to pause the video at any time, please do so. Your essential statement is I can apply the order of operations to evaluate expressions. So the first thing we need to talk about is what is a variable. That's vocabulary. A variable is a letter or symbol that represents a value. Examples could be things like X and Y, M, K, and Z, really any letter of the alphabet. What does evaluate mean? Evaluate means to solve or simplify. And the example here in the problem is 7 plus Y. I can evaluate or plug in or solve with the 4 plugging into the Y here and replacing it. So I now have 7 plus 4 equals 11. Quick review of PEMDAS, which we have now changed to GEMDAS. Remember, G is a grouping symbol now, so parentheses, brackets, absolute value, and the big fraction bar. And then multiplying and dividing are the same level. We travel from left to right. Adding and subtracting are the same level as well, traveling left to right. So grouping symbols, I just mentioned these again. Parentheses are grouping symbols, so actual parentheses, brackets. We've talked about they can look like either one of these. Absolute value will have numbers inside of it. You've seen that before. Same with brackets, there'll be information inside the brackets. Brackets get used when there are already parentheses in use. Another review is of exponents. We have squared, which is x squared, the number 2. So x to the second power is what squared is. That means x times x. And the example here is 4 squared, 4 times 4, which is 16. Remember, squared is two-dimensional. An actual square is two-dimensional, which is why we use the number 2. We also have cubed. Cubed is to the third power. That means x times x times x. Remember, a cube is three-dimensional, which is why we use the number 3. Example here is 4 cubed would be 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64. Next page of your notes. When you substitute a number in, put the number in parentheses back into the expression, and then you will follow PEMDAS. So let's get started on the first one here. We're going to evaluate when x is -2. So anywhere I see an x, I'm going to plug in. If you are a highlighter person, I would highlight, otherwise box here. So where you see the boxes in green, I'm going to put the number 2 and plug in to both of those spots. So I'm going to rewrite the problem, and we want to use parentheses. So I have -2 squared plus 4, and then the operation there is multiplication, and I can see that also when I use parentheses, and then -3. It's very important that you use parentheses when you plug in, especially for those negative signs, because otherwise that turns into 4 minus 2 instead of 4 times 2. We can follow PEMDAS or GEMDAS. And so exponents first, that would be our base is -2, so -2 times -2, which is +4. Keep writing, everything stays. Next we have multiplying, and that gives us -8. Drop down everything else. Adding and subtracting from left to right, we have -4 minus 3, which gives us a final answer of -7. Now we have a question here. What if we changed our x to be negative instead? How is that going to change the problem? So I'm going to rewrite the question. So I'm asking you -x squared plus 4x minus 3. And we're still going to plug in or evaluate when x is negative 2. So now we're going to plug in there. So anything not an x stays the same. And I'm color coding here. If you're a highlighter person, I would encourage you to do that. Very important that you have the negative 2 in parentheses. Same thing here, parentheses, the negative 2. And then evaluate using order of operations. So we still follow exponents first. Our base is negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2. That gives us positive 4. Copy everything else down. The one thing we can't forget here is this negative sign on the outside also has to get dropped down and stuck in front there. And then we can continue on with the problem. Multiplying gives us negative 8. And you can see how that's changing the problem because it was positive 4, now it's negative 4. I get negative 12. I'm kind of running out of room here. Minus 3, which gives me an answer of negative 15. All right, number 2. We're going to evaluate y cubed when y is 3. So anywhere I see a y, if you're a highlighter person, we're going to plug in 3 for our y. Everything else stays the same, and then I use parentheses there. And then I evaluate. So my base of my exponent is 3, so that's going to be 3 times 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. And then I can't forget about that negative sign that was here. Needs to get added in over here. So my answer is negative 27. And then we're going to change the problem again here. What if y was negative 3? So we have the same problem, negative y cubed. But this time, when we evaluate, we're going to plug in a negative 3 here instead. Nothing else in the problem changes. And then I put it in parentheses, the negative 3. So now my base is negative 3. That would give me negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. A negative times a negative is a positive 9 times a negative gives me negative 27. And then just like last time, I have this negative sign on the outside. I have to come and stick that in over here. And we know that a negative negative makes a big plus. So my final answer on this problem is going to be positive 27. All right, question 3 and question 4. Number 3, when there is more than one variable, be sure to substitute in the correct number. That's just a duh. You want to make sure you're plugging it in right, otherwise it's going to be wrong, for the corresponding variable. Still using parentheses. Okay, so number 3, we're going to evaluate when w is negative 1 and z is negative 10, and I'm going to color code these. So I'm going to use w as green and z as purple. And that means this w is green and the z here is purple. Everything else stays. And then we want to use parentheses, so negative 1 goes in here. And z is negative 10. All right. Order of operations, we do parentheses first. Inside the parentheses, negative 1 plus 3 gives me 2. Exponents before multiply. So 2 to the third is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Then I can multiply, that's 56 plus negative 10, and that gives me an answer of 46. All right, number 4. Oops.